A Tiny Revolution features adults having adult conversations, which means that adult language is probably going to be present, just so you know. Hey there, you're listening to A Tiny Revolution, a podcast about ordinary people living revolutionary lives. And this is episode 53. Welcome, my friends. How we doing? How you feeling? How's life? How are you doing? Honestly, truly, you doing okay? Is you? Good, because I wanted to know. And if you know that reference, comment on the blog and let me know if you know that pretty obscure YouTube reference. But anyways, hi, thank you so much for joining me again for another episode. I am currently in Chicago at the Reformation Project National Leadership Development Cohort 2018. That is a mouthful, isn't it? We had a wonderful, beautiful time of worship and teaching last night that resulted in some really powerful moments. So thank you to everyone who came out to that. If you weren't able to join us in person or online, you can always go back and watch the keynote from that on the Reformation Project's Facebook page. So go ahead and check that out if you want to get inspired today, honey. Speaking of inspiration, today on the podcast, I'm talking with one of my biggest inspirations in life, which sounds like totally fruity, I know, but again, look who we're talking to. I'm talking with Jamie Wright, aka the Very Worst Missionary. Jamie has been kind of gaining some notoriety recently with her work on the Failed Missionary podcast, where they're talking about the broken system of short-term and long-term, basically evangelical missions. Where she's also just released her book, which is called The Very Worst Missionary, and we talk about that in the interview. But let me give you a little bit of background on Jamie before we get into the conversation. About 100 years ago, like in 2007, Jamie Wright boldly marched out of the suburbs and into a world of Christian missions, wide-eyed and altruistic as fuck. When she took on the title of missionary, she earnestly thought she'd been called by God to do something amazing in a faraway land, and though she was completely unfamiliar with the language, culture, and spiritual climate of Costa Rica, she sincerely thought that she'd be able to make a difference there. This was in part because she believed the lies that she'd been told by Christians, by hashtag the Christian missions machine, that all you had to do was show up, no matter how unprepared or ill-equipped, and that God would just do the rest, because that's how it works, right? And then if you only helped one person, or encouraged someone or blessed someone in some way, then it would be all worth it. But little did she know is that as she snaked her way through the Costa Rican customs and immigration to start a new life in Latin America with her spouse and 3 sons, that she was diving headlong into a broken system. So in this conversation, we touch on so many different topics. We talk about being ex-evangelical. We talk about being on the missions field. We talk about queer folks. And we also talk about why the Southern Baptist Convention can't endorse her book, which the answer may surprise you, to be honest. A couple other things that you should know about her. She's snarky and sarcastic. She's cynical to a fault. She says fuck a lot, like more than I do on any given podcast, which is refreshing to not be the only heathen on this show. You know what I'm saying? I think that you're really going to enjoy this conversation. It's beautiful. It's very vulnerable. And then in the end, I make her cry. So go ahead and grab yourself a glass of whatever you fancy. Oh, something we didn't include in the podcast before we jump into this. This is so funny. I emailed Jamie in like 2016 and asked her for an interview and never got a response. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I get it. Like, she's a big, important, first tier progressive Christian blogger. And, maybe one day when I get up there, I can, interview her. And then, then at the very beginning of the podcast, we talk about how I asked her to be on my podcast again in a very delightful fashion. So go ahead again and grab yourself a glass of whatever you fancy. Grab a friend, sit down, shut up, and listen to me and my friend, Jamie Wright. Hello. Thank you for being on with me. I appreciate it.
That is my pleasure. Thank you for asking and inviting me and having me on. I think it's cool. And that was fun. That was a fun, probably the best, most fun podcast invite I've ever gotten.
Mm-hmm. I've already hit the record button, but can I tell the people listening how I asked you to be on the podcast? Because I think it's probably one of my better stories.
Yeah, I think you should, for sure. I think you should definitely say it.
So, me and my homies were at the White Christian Conference, not the White Christian Conference, because everyone thinks I'm saying white Christian and they just look at me funny. I'm like, no, it's not that kind of conference. But we're sitting in the room and I I'm talking to Matthias, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna send Jamie Wright. I'm gonna send her a video message. Now, context: I have had 3 gins at this point, going on my 4th one, and they poured them really strong down at the hotel bar. And I asked Jamie Wright. I said, "Hey, do you want to be on my podcast?" And then I'm just like, Jamie's not gonna respond to that. And then Jamie Wright responds with a video of just emphatic nodding.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are. And then,
yeah. Well, I like how you tell it. You're like, "Hey, want to be on my podcast?" But it wasn't really like that. You were like, "Hey, just here with my friends in the hotel with our gin." Like it was very gin filled invitation. So.
Yeah, which I think the best invitations in life are.
For sure. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Unless you're in recovery, in which case I support you on that journey. Anyways.
Agreed.
Yeah. Anyways, hi.
Hi.
I'm gonna geek out for like 0.2 seconds, because when I was a missionary back in the Dizzy, I followed your work and I was like, holy shit, she gets it. And I also feel the same way about so many things. And then when I found my way out of it, I was like, oh my gosh, so did she. This is great.
I know, it's like this freedom.
Yeah,
it's like
really.
Awesome path.
Yeah.
Where were you a missionary?
I worked with Adventures in Missions, and so I did the world race and went around the world and, did a bunch of weird stuff in the name of our Lord and Savior. Mm-hmm. And the entire time battled like my sexuality, tried not to be a practicing homosexual. And then all of us on the trip who were struggling, quote unquote struggling, all of us are now out of the closet and like either...
Now, on the trip, were you like struggling with each other? I mean,
oh my God. I had like I would say kind of like an unhealthy relationship with one of my guy friends on the trip that I think it was kind of like low key codependent because like, I know that like, if I can just build a strong friendship with him, then I won't be attracted to him. But then like, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it was like,
you can't do that with a crush.
Yeah. So it was weird, but then, we still remained friends, and then he went off and, lived his best straight life after the race. So it's fine.
Okay. Well, I was just curious if anybody's like hooking up because I always have my suspicions.
100%.
Yeah.
It's like, there's no dating on the race. Okay, honey, let me tell you.
Yeah. No, I don't believe that for a second.
Yeah.
So that's funny.
And then also, I mean, like, since we're in like I'm in the realm of full confessions these days. Like, I made out with a dude when I was in Serbia, some random guy we met at the pool. And so, I
love it.
And felt terrible about it the entire time. And so like did this whole confessional thing to my squad parents or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
It was like, looking back on it now, like I wish I would have just like quit the race right then and just like gallivanted through Eastern Europe. That probably would have been fun.
Right. Instead of like living with all that like guilt and shame heaped on you, and that you're like in the field and people are writing you checks and
oh my God,
making out with Serbians.
Yeah.
It's hard. That's a lot to carry.
Yeah, it was weird. I think there's me and Corey Pig are going to be doing like a whole series of LGBT identities for failed missionaries. And
I love Corey so much.
He is a doll, a gem, and a remarkable human. So I'm pumped to be working with him for that project.
That's cool.
Well, to dive into, like, I'm not very formal in these things, as you can tell, but
I love that.
For folks who don't know Jamie Wright, aka Jamie the Very Worst Missionary, if you could give us a snapshot of who you are, what you've been up to, and what you're doing right now, and then we'll just go from there.
Okay. Let's see. Who am I? Well, I was a normal suburban evangelical soccer mom with the bob haircut and the whatever, like the kids in matching outfits on Easter. I did all that for a while, and then eventually made my way into the mission field with my family, my husband and 3 sons. And immediately, 5 minutes later, was like, this is a mess. I was like, this is a clusterfuck. And sort of struggled with what to do about that, and eventually just started writing about it kind of honestly online. And that has parlayed itself into a career and a book. And so now today today I launched my very first book, which is a memoir about all that shit, about like falling into the evangelical church and just clawing my way out and, tripping my way into missions and running out as fast as I could. So it was, it's been interesting. So I wrote it all down and now it's in a book.
Congratulations also on the release.
Thanks. It's weird. It's a weird feeling, but yeah, I'm glad. I guess I'm glad it's here and I can, move forward.
Yeah. I think there was one of my friends, we were talking. So I wrote my first book, like when I was still like working for the missions organization. Cause we did also, let me tell you like and I'll unpack this on Failed Missionary later, y'all. So you can stay tuned for that. But I did their discipleship program where I paid them money to live in poverty and share a room with 9 guys. And then they were going to train me to be a writer for the Lord.
I get it. There's so many finger quotes happening right now. It's very important.
Yeah. And so like, I wrote like a 14-chapter book in, I think 9 weeks about just like my whole life. And then, but like, it was still from the perspective of, trying to be someone healing themselves from homosexuality and whatnot. And it's very interesting. Like one of my friends said to me, she's like, before and then like after I came out and whatnot, like I rewrote the whole thing. And so I still have like a whole manuscript that's not published out there just because I needed to get it all out of my system. And I think it's because, at least in my experience, just like sometimes like in order to tell the rest of the story of your life, you have to get this one story out of you and just put it out there for everyone else to have a Me Too moment.
Which is so important. And I love that. I mean, it's really, really true. It's that process of like, how do we walking through it all and figuring it all out and putting it all together in something that's kind of cohesive and sensible and being able to look at your own story and see, like where you've come from. And I don't know. I mean, I think
What was the hardest part about writing your book?
Writing it.
The actual writing process?
Like actually like being like, I'm going to go sit in my office and write a stupid book right now. I mean, it's and in managing just like life around that, like real life, and my kids are young adults, and so that's like a lot of stress and pressure, and there's just like a lot of stuff going on in my life while I was writing the book. So it was just kind of an interesting process of being like, I'm going to just buckle down and sit in my office and focus on this big kind of obscure task and ignore all of the details of my life right now. So, but it worked out in the end and it got done. So I don't know. I can't really complain.
I mean, you could if you want to.
I could. And I do all the time.
Do you have any complaints you'd like to complain right now?
Oh God, I always have complaints. Always, always. There's never a time that I don't have complaints. But I don't know. I don't want to sound like an asshole, so.
That's my daily goal. It's just try not to sound like an asshole.
It's hard. It's so much harder than it sounds. Like, I don't know.
Because, not to Enneagram speak, but to Enneagram speak, you are a 5?
5, yep.
Which, like, after I heard that, I was like, oh my God, that does make sense.
Really?
Only because, like, my only context for actually, like, getting to know you a little bit more is through, like, your blog and the Failed Missionary podcast. But after hearing you talk about the way missions is negative, or quote, mission work and white evangelical mission work has impacted the world in such a negative way, like, you have so much data. And I'm like, that makes sense. Me, I'm just a person who, like, I'm an 8 on the Enneagram, and I just want to, like, I just know that it's bad, so I'm going to go, like, burn it down if I can.
Burn it down. Yeah. No. I'm like, I'm gonna study this. I'm gonna read the book. I'm gonna read about every stories, and I'm gonna collect all the information, and then I'm gonna like sit on it for a long time while I process it. But I don't know. I think being an Enneagram 5 has served me well in my life and in helping me kind of identify these huge areas of brokenness that nobody's talking about, and just like kind of sitting back for a while and watching the people around me and just being like, this is fucked up. Like, why isn't anybody else saying this is fucked up? Like, whether it was the evangelical suburban church or, getting into the mission field and just being like, you guys are fucking weirdos. Like, all of that. Like, just, it was, nobody else was saying these things out loud. And so I think being a 5 really, it has served me well in that arena.
Yeah. Specifically, like, what are the kind of like fucked up things that you've observed about mission work, evangelical? And I know you said this other places, but I'm going to ask you because you're on my podcast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, missions, I don't, there's very little about missions that isn't fucked up. Like,
Yeah.
it's this disaster of, white American wealth just doing whatever we want all over the world and calling it good in the name of Jesus, and using the most bullshitty platitudes on the face of the planet to excuse our just whatever, like our patronizing arrival in people's countries, and all of the garbage, like the waste and the billions of dollars just down the drain every year. And we're like, you know what? If just one life was changed.
Oh.
Yeah, nope. Or, you know what? It's just so much better. I mean, it really helps the people who go on these trips. Like, they're really changed. No, they're not. Nope. And, you know what? It's just really good for us to expose our entitled teenagers to poverty. Nope. It's not doing anything for them. Like, we just tell these fucking lies. Just straight lies. And nobody questions it, and everybody applauds it. And, so that is probably like the number one thing is like, can we just have an honest conversation? Can we just, in this world of missions where all the language is nebulous and dumb and missions doesn't mean anything. Missionary doesn't mean anything. Like, none of the, if you're planting seeds doesn't mean anything. Loving on people doesn't mean anything. Like, it's just these random phrases that we've pulled out of thin air to serve ourselves so that we can go wherever we want and do whatever we want and have the church pay for it.
Ew.
Yeah, it's gross. It is.
I mean, like, that's exactly how I feel. Like, especially looking back on it now. I think I was very fortunate. Like, when I came out and basically got pushed out of like the missions organization. Thank God I got froze out of the missions organization. Now, granted, it was traumatic because that was my only community, and that's the only way I knew how to do life. Quotes, air quotes on that as well. But then I also realized that like certain behaviors in those spaces were super, in hindsight, it's like, oh my God, I was being emotionally manipulated. You know what it was? I was actually watching The Path on Hulu, which is the show about the cults, and like their one of their main people is like losing the faith or whatever, so his own journey of personal discovery. But the behaviors of people and how they manipulated their membership and like gaslit them into like thinking certain things or like having to believe a certain way, I was like, holy shit. I might have been in like a low-key cult.
Yeah. Oh, it's spiritual abuse. It really is. It's absolutely spiritual abuse, and nobody addresses it. And in fact, we do the opposite. The church tells everybody how awesome they are if they're involved in missions, and nobody questions it.
I think especially and this is at least my experience, like being in organizations like World Race, YWAM. I don't know of any other larger organizations who do like that kind of like similar like discipleship model, right. And then we're gonna send you out even though you have like zero experience with doing anything into the world. Like, I look back at that, I'm just like, holy shit, I have a degree in music. Like, what am I doing here in Albania? I'm like, and not to mention, like, I was like dealing with all of my depression at the same time, and I brought all the smokers out of the closet, like, because I think it's just like my need to be against everything. Like, I bucked against like all of our authority figures, and so I was like, you know what? I'm going to walk to the corner store and I'm going to buy a pack of Camels. And so walked back, just went up to the roof where everyone was chilling, lit up there, just like, oh, you're smoking. And and I was like, do you want one? And they're like, yeah. And so,
oh my God. We had an intern come down who, like 3 days before he got there, his pastor sent an email, like a really concerned email, like, hey, there's something I need to talk to you about. Like, it's really important, before so-and-so gets there. And,
to Costa Rica?
Yes, this was in Costa Rica. This intern, he's like, so it was like an older guy, single guy, just wanted to come down and help out. And the pastor was like, so, gets on the phone, he's like, so, he's a smoker. And he, like, we've told him, like, hey, don't go, don't do it out in the public. Like, it's we're trying to be really cool with it. And we're just like, so they made this big deal about how this guy is a smoker. He gets down there and he starts telling us his story. well, the first time I meet him, I'm carrying this big tray of food, and I like run into him in a doorway, and he was like, "That looks delicious, way better than the food they served us in prison." And I was like, "I hope it wasn't for rape. Like, what is happening? I don't know why you're here." And he, like, super nice guy, but he was in prison for a ton of drug stuff, like big time drug stuff. And
Wow.
the church sent him down to this Central American cocaine highway, you know, and
Because that seems smart.
Never said a word about his drug history, where you could literally like walk into any pharmacy and buy any, you know, whatever, any pain meds you want, anything. And he never mentioned that, but they were really concerned. They really wanted us to know, like, that he's a smoker.
Yeah, that's the thing that you need to watch out for is his nicotine addiction, y'all.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
It was so weird. It was so weird. So yeah, that's crazy, crazy stuff in missions. But I'm glad you got all the smokers out of the closet.
Yeah, we needed each other because like we were all just. Mm-hmm. I think we all just kind of like we smelt the bullshit, and then I didn't finish my term on the field. Like I quit, and there was like a handful of us that like quit right after I did, and so anytime we got together for like weddings, because of course, you know, people found the love of their life on the field or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's another thing that pisses me to fuck off is that they always say you can't date on the race, and then like they get like any couple that comes together on the race or met because of Adventures in Missions and like pony show them around. They're just like, if it can happen for them, it can happen for you, Barbara. And I'm just like, in hindsight, I'm just like, first of all, you're centralizing not Jesus but marriage and relationship, and you're like making like if you're not in a committed monogamous relationship with someone of the opposite sex, and then you have to wait to have sex until you get married, mm-hmm. or else
your vagina is going to hell.
Yeah, just your vagina though.
Just your vagina. Well, because God forgives the rest of you. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, but your sex parts and a man's penis is fine, but
yes. Yeah. No, really, it's just the vaginas.
Yeah. Oh my God. But it's one of these things. There's such double standards in general when it comes. Not double standards, just shitty standards.
Yeah, shitty. Yeah, the bar is so ridiculous. Like it's just so dumb. It's so dumb, and nobody wants to say it's dumb. Mm-hmm. That's the part that disturbs me so much.
Yeah. Like, certain people in my squad, I'm just like, you shouldn't be out here. You need to be in a therapist's office.
Right? And you probably knew that within 5 minutes of meeting them. Mm-hmm. You're just like, oh, you're a mess. You're a mess. You shouldn't be in the field. And if you go anywhere in the world where there's a, like, contingency of missionaries, you will find that a huge percentage of them are just not, like, normal people.
No.
They're just not normal. But we just keep sending them. Mm-hmm. Like, it's like we're inflicting them on the world. It's awesome.
Yeah. And it's not like I want to, like, put a metric on what normal is or whatnot, or, like, stigmatize mental health, but I want to say, like, I feel like, especially, I think it's, like, within Christendom, or at least, let me say this, within evangelical world, we, as folks who, don't fit into our communities very well, people who struggle with sort of mental health issues, but they're also super zealous, you know, they just kind of, like, as this person was like, oh, you should go over there.
Right. And honestly, mental health issues aside, I mean, I'm talking just straight, like, socially inept.
Oh, God.
Like, people that are just so, I think a nice way to say it would be just quirky. Like, you're just so quirky. Like,
yeah, that is a nice way of putting it.
You know, like, I'm sure there are people for you out there, but you're so quirky that maybe you're not the right person to put on an airplane and put in a foreign environment. You know?
Yeah.
There's a lot of those people. Mm-hmm. That kind of like, you know, just really, it's like almost painful to watch them in relationships because you're just like, oh God. So, and I know that's kind of mean, but it's also like, if you have a purpose and your purpose is whatever mission you've decided on, like, shouldn't that be taken into account? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard.
That's a word for it. Mm-hmm. So you've been working with Corey on Failed Missionary podcast, which is smashing, by the way.
It's so good, isn't it? Corey he's knocking it out of the park. Like, he's done such a good job. Mm-hmm. I'm amazed.
The production value is out of this world. And then, like, people listen to my podcast and I'm just like, hey, listen, I literally just, I have a little baby mic, and I just hit record, and then I cut, drag, and drop in GarageBand, because that's our budget, honey.
That works. And honestly, like, it's, as long as it's entertaining and good, easy to listen to, then I think people are fine. But Corey has really done such a beautiful job making Failed Missionary, like, delightful. Like, it's so entertaining, and it propels, it moves forward. I love it. I think he's done such a great job.
Yeah. And I feel like it addresses all the things that, like, we've all been saying. He was telling me about the numbers of, like, how many people are listening in, and I'm just like, well, I'm not really surprised, to be honest, because, like, I feel like there's a population of us out here who escapes that world. And I'm trying to think, like, is escape the best word, or is it that, you know, I try not to go ooky spooky mumbo jumbo, but sometimes I honestly think, like, it was a Holy Ghost moment that got me out of there.
I 100% agree with you. I think the word that I would use is delivered.
I am delivered.
I know it sounds ridiculous, but honestly, I feel like it is such a gift. Like those of us who have been who sort of like had those moments, like the scales fell from our eyes and we could see clearly, and it was God saying, like, in whatever way, you know, like you get to get out of this, like you get out, and I don't know. I think that's like a really cool thing.
Yeah.
Is there like background noise coming from me or no?
I mean, a touch, but it's not really that bad.
Because I don't know what it's coming from.
Hold on, let me see in here. There's a little bit coming in on my side too, so it might be me too. I think, like, the air kicked on or something, but it doesn't matter, honestly, because, you know, people know my brand is garbage. That's the thing.
You know what? That's so smart. If you set the bar really, really low, eventually, like, you can just do anything you want. I love it. It's like my favorite thing about, like, my online thing. Like, I get 1-star reviews. I have, like, all these, like, shitty 1-star reviews, and people are like, the 1-star reviews made me buy your book. And I was like, thank you.
Oh,
like,
people,
it's just
like,
so good.
Like, people who haven't actually purchased the book are just like, oh,
yeah.
no. You tweeted this, I think, today. It was like the SBC said, we cannot endorse Jamie Wright's book, and here's why.
And I'm like, thank you. I could not have paid for better advertising.
Oh, my God. That's so good. I'm just like, any press is good press, right?
Oh, my God, yeah. But that press, like, that's exactly what I want people to see is, oh, guess who doesn't like my shit?
Oh, the Good Old Boys Club.
I know. Oh, God, it made me so happy. I was thrilled. But did you see why? Did you read that article?
No, I was on the plane. And then I had
don't read the article. Do not read it. It will make you enraged. But I wrote, you know, 60,000 word book on, like, just a memoir, right? So it's my story, my spiritual journey, you know, going from the evangelical church and into missions. And this chick writes this article for the SBC it's for their International Missions Board about how Jamie addresses all these important issues, of course, but she's crass and she's filthy and dirty, but she addresses all these issues and we need to talk about these issues, but we have to discount her whole book because there's 4 paragraphs in some chapter where she affirms gay marriage.
Oh, wait, you affirm gay people?
Weird.
I have to get off the line now.
I know.
I cannot eat in the presence of sinners.
I know. Well, you know.
Oh my God. That's
why.
I'm like, that's why? Not because she's basically calling you out on all of your bullshit, but because she's chill with the gays. That is so funny. And
it's literally like 4 paragraphs in this entire book. And she's like, well, now we have to throw it all away.
That's so interesting to me. And, like, I feel that's generally what it is. It's like, it makes me so upset because I think about, like, the context of ally people who come out as allies, people who just come out in general. It's like, it doesn't really matter what the rest of your story is, because if you're not in line with this one little thing, which is, like, such a nebulous topic and complicated topic to talk about in general, if that's the thing that's gonna, like, cause you to, like, break communion with somebody, like, that's really shallow. Like, really shallow in, like, in the whole breadth of the Bible, and like in light of who Jesus is, and, like, what Jesus came to do in the world, and, like, the continued mission of Jesus through his church. Why are you worried about that? Ugh.
Seriously.
Put me on the pulpit. Telling you, I'm ready.
I would love that. I know, right? And that's kind of how I feel. I'm like, okay, fine. You guys stay over there doing your weird evangelical thing, and we'll be over here being the church. Like,
Yeah.
bye. I don't care. It's just, it enrages me because I think it's such a bad, it's just so bad. But, yeah, so that was that whole thing that I woke up to. That was like the first thing I woke up to on like
On launch day.
Publication day. Yeah, launch day. That was it. It was like this weird SBC shitstorm of like, here's this whatever, that I'm some sort of apostate heretic because I walked a dear friend down the aisle on her wedding day.
I mean, farewell, Jamie Wright. Farewell.
Works for me. Works for me.
Oh my God. Hilarious, wonderful, and terrible.
Yeah.
Like most things in life.
Right? Yeah.
I think
that's true.
I try to think about my life like back then, but like when I was kind of trying to walk this middle ground of like being someone who is, quote, same-sex attracted and trying to walk a middle line. And it's very interesting to me how many people will say that they want to love their LGBTQ brothers and sisters, but like for them, like they think that love for them, like they set up the parameters in which what love looks like. And I think it's a very similar thing to like what people do in mission work, perhaps, is like, we're going to go love on this group of people and we're going to set the parameters of what that kind of love looks like. And, if they don't accept this kind of love, then, obviously, like, the Holy Spirit is not in them. It just...
It's like shocking. It's shocking to me. The weird, like... Oh, God, yeah. I just find it so disturbing. But, anyway, I don't know. I'm just like, fuck it. Go ahead. You guys go be the SBC. I don't care. Go do your thing, and the rest of us will just keep marching forward and genuinely like living alongside one another and attempting to be Christ-like in that.
Yeah. What I think is what gives me a lot of hope, though. Well, it's like honestly, like testimonies like yours is like, yes, all this shit has happened in the name of Jesus. Yes, the history of the church is not great. Yes, like there is like perpetual like patriarchy, heterosexism, trans misogyny all across the board. And yet it's like this person of Jesus, I can't shake it. And yeah.
I totally hear you. I was just talking to someone about that yesterday where I was just like, I can't get rid of Jesus. I can't let it go. Like Jesus changed my life and I just can't, I can't shake it. Just like you said, like I cannot get rid of that. I can't ditch it. I can't leave it behind. It's just not going anywhere. And so, and I find that following Jesus is like the most, noble pursuit of my life. Like, just like digging into like the things that Jesus taught and how he lived his life. It's the most challenging, most rich thing I've ever done, and difficult. It's hard, but it's the most radical thing like that I've ever really tried to do with my life. So I'm just going to keep doing that.
Yeah. Same girl, same.
Yeah.
It's like, and I think it's also because like when I look at all the other things that I could be doing, like I was, I had the opportunity to serve as Eucharistic minister with Nadia Bolz-Weber at White Christian.
I saw that. Yeah.
Fucking cried my eyes out because I'm just like, I haven't got to serve communion like this. It's coming out. And it was like, I did not cry on the stage. But I did cry during prayers of the people. And also when like she turned to me and said, "This is the body of Christ for you." Done.
God. I can cry right now just thinking about it.
Like, because that's the thing. And like, I remember specifically like when like I finally got it. And I think honestly, like it might have been the moment that I actually really became a Christian is after the Pulse shooting, which I guess was a year and a half ago, going on 2 years now. I remember going to a memorial service in a bar that was put on by a Lutheran pastor. And I remember her giving like this really long litany about who the table was set for. And she said, it doesn't matter if you're pushing a shopping cart or you're driving a Hummer. It doesn't matter what color your skin. It doesn't matter if you have bags for shoes or you're wearing stilettos. And she is like, it doesn't matter if you're gay or straight or genderqueer or all these sorts of things. She's just like, this is the body of Christ for you. And it changed my life forever to know. And I think that's the thing that like kept me going in the church, was that moment of, it does not matter what the rest of the church has said about people like me or anybody else for that matter, because if Jesus says I am worthy of his body and his blood, if I am worthy of the waters of baptism, I am worthy to serve my church in the capacity that I'm called to. And it does not matter if somebody has taken 6 verses and just like weaponized them, or taken Paul's words and weaponized them. And also something I was thinking about today that I heard on another podcast, I don't think Paul actually ever thought that his words would be canonized, because
Totally.
He was so hard on himself. But it's like, it doesn't matter what anybody has said about me, because if God calls me worthy, you know, as Beyonce once said in a song, when Jesus say yes, nobody can say no.
Exactly. But and that's all it boils down to, right? If Beyonce says it, then we know. We know.
Absolutely.
That's canon there.
The queer canon. Put it in there. But it's that thing of the person of Jesus. You know, whether and this is something like I fully confess I don't know anymore about, like this whole idea of like the divinity of Christ. You know, and that's something that I also like is weird, because I'm going to seminary to become a Christian pastor. Is like, I think one thing I wonder about is like, even if I couldn't prove we can't prove it. That's the thing. It's like, I can't prove any of this shit. Right. Like, you know, whether Jesus was divine and like, you know, immaculate conception, the whole 9 yards. And I asked myself one day, I'm just like, okay, like if Jesus wasn't all these things, if Jesus wasn't born of a virgin, if Jesus didn't actually get resurrected, would I still want to follow this way of being in the world? And my answer was yes. And so it's like, and I've also
totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And the truth is, even if Jesus was a symbol, the way that up until his death, we used the images of lambs and scapegoats. I mean, even if it was symbolic, does it have less meaning? Is it less meaningful for God to send Jesus in this and give us this symbol of death and resurrection? I mean, it still tells the story, right? It still takes all those thousands of years of history and all of those thousands of years of like ceremonial spirituality and brings them to like a crescendo that includes everyone. Like, it's still so beautiful and so challenging.
God, that part, because like it does include everyone. And that's like what pisses me off so much about the kind of work that like we have to do, is like, because not only did Jesus die for my sins or whatnot, or because of my sins or whatever, however you want to put that, but also if the table is set for me, the table is also set for every one of those goddamn missionaries at Adventures in Missions who kicked me out.
Yep.
And it's like heartbreaking for me to think, I'm just like, God, you don't know how free you are to love people, do you? Or to love them.
That is the hard part. That is the hard part, because I am like fuck you, SBC. Like I do feel like everyone else can just bite me, and that's obviously not the way of Christ. But
it's real talk.
Yeah, but it's hard. But that's the challenge, right? Is that's the whole thing? Is that it doesn't really matter who you are. If you're following Jesus, he's calling you to love, and whether it's the ultra right wing conservative that has to learn that process, which means loving his gay neighbor, or whether it's the ultra liberal whatever, like we also have to learn to love them, and it's so hard.
Hell, who the fuck knows how that works? I don't know.
Still
trying to figure it out.
Right. And I definitely cling to that verse of like, as much as it depends on me, or as far as it depends on me, to live at peace with everyone. Because then I'm like, well, if it depends on me, then all I'm called to is to live at peace with you, then I'll just not be around you, and then we have peace.
You're like, all right, I'm
Right?
gonna go.
Yeah, I'll just peace out, and then we're good. But so there are times I think where it's just like, okay, I'm just gonna separate myself from this, and we'll have peace, and that'll be okay. But it is definitely challenging.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it was Reverend Gail Song from whatever her church is out in wherever Seattle. She spoke at White Christian, and she said I'm really not about reconciliation. I am more about justice first. And I'm like, yeah, I think that I think that's why I feel so strongly about the things that I do, and like the kind of work that we do, is because if Jesus was the person who stood on the side of the marginalized and the oppressed, first and foremost, because he wasn't he didn't walk into the temple during Holy Week and say, oh my gosh, you guys, we need to talk about this. No,
right.
He came in and with a whip.
Yep.
And drove them out.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I'm just if I'm following the way of Jesus, where's my table to flip? Where's the place that I need to drive out the money changers in order so that the temple of God can be a place for the people again. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think it starts, is it has our churches need to be communities for actual people who have actual needs, and not a country club for rich white people.
I totally agree. I 100% agree with you. And that is exactly, given the choice, I'm always going to lean toward the felt needs of the poor and marginalized, always. If I have to choose, if there's a burning building and I have to choose between, the rich white guy and and literally anyone else.
Literally anyone else.
Guess who I'm choosing? I don't know. I don't know. But it is very frustrating, obviously, to have these conversations over and over and over and over again, and to have the people coming at you with the same, and they're all saying the same dumb shit, and you're just like, ugh, I've heard this argument. I've heard your dumb, whatever, your arguments that I'm causing division, and I'm whatever, mm-hmm. I'm negative, and I'm cynical, and I'm this and that, whatever. And I just don't give a shit, because honestly, I'm not here to preach to the Christians or to the evangelical Christians. I don't care. If you don't like my message, don't listen to it, and that's fine with me. So,
as Jay-Z put it, if you don't like my lyrics, you can press fast forward.
I love it. Yes.
Everything I learned from Jay. That's not true. I learned some things from my mom too,
and Beyonce,
of course. The truth, duh. But that's the thing. I remember when I started blogging, and when I came out, and because I was blogging for a while, just kind of trying to do Christian millennial faith, and still trying to be in the good old boys club. Mm-hmm. Then I found out I was kind of a lady sometimes. But that's I lost my train of thought just now.
That was funny. Let's see, you're blogging.
But when I switched to just talking about sexuality, gender, faith, and justice, so many people did the same thing, and just I feel you're just being really negative of all Christians, and just not all Christians. And I'm bitch, I know, I am one. I know not all Christians are this way. I know not everyone is going into the other side of the world and ruining local economies. I know not every straight Christian hates gay people. Mm-hmm. And also, most of them, for the most part, have done a lot of damage. Mm-hmm. And if you don't like it, cool. Do you have anything else to say?
Right. Guess what? There are 10,000 blogs for you to read that aren't about this.
And also,
I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just it's why are you here? Why are you here? Mm-hmm. If you just do you want me? I don't have time to engage with you. I've got, because while I'm here wasting my breath with you, trying that's one thing that just I'm so glad I stopped engaging with every single comment on the internet,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, if I engage with every single one of these people and try to convince them that I'm right, because I love being right. That's one of my biggest sins, is I love...
Who doesn't? Who doesn't love being right? Don't we all?
Truly. But it's like, I can't convince... I'm not going to waste my time trying to convince you that I'm right, because at the end of the day, like, my people are dying,
Mm-hmm.
and I need to go get them. I need to go, like, try and do some spiritual triage on them, so that they
Mm-hmm.
don't, like, completely just, like, you know, walk out on their own life.
Yep, absolutely. Every time I get one of those comments or one of those people that's just like, you're, you know, whatever, you're so negative, or you're not giving us solutions, or you're just, you know, condemning everyone or condemning the church. I want to invite them into my inbox and just say, look, like, if you could see how people come and they're, the things that they're saying about, like, this, you're helping me not lose my faith. You're helping me stay alive. You're helping me realize whatever, these things, that I'm connected to God, that I don't have to walk away from the church, that
Mm-hmm.
I can stay in relationship with Jesus, that I can continue to follow Jesus and not participate in all of these, like, painful, hurtful things. Like, if they could see that, well, I don't think they'd even care, honestly, because their agenda is so firm and so
Mm-hmm.
rigid. But I'm just like, okay, well, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm called to. I know the work that I've called to, and I'm going to just keep doing it. And if it's disturbing to you, I don't care.
Yeah. That's, I relate to that so hard, because it's like, every day there's an email, there's a DM, there is a Twitter, a tweeter.
Mm-hmm. A tweeter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. From somebody out there who apparently likes something that I made on the internet. Mm-hmm. I think, like, YouTube is, like, the most interesting place that I've been. I like, that's, like, my newest platform that I've been on. And the number of youth that are finding these videos and, like, getting resourced so that they can actually talk to their parents about their own experiences in a way that is theologically, theologically sound to the conservative mind, which is like, I don't even know what I think about the Bible sometimes, but, like, I know how to, like, talk the talk, because, like, that's where, like, the progress has to be made. Is like, I have to talk to you on your level before I get to all the mystic stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's like, if you, like, it's that exact exasperated feeling. I'm just like, if you only knew, like, how much you were hurting other people. Uh-huh. Like, but, like, even in that, like, even if, like, we show it listed, it's like, hi, and I guess it's like, it's evidenced by the fact that we have we have the data. This is how evangelicalism, missions, bad theology is killing people.
Yep.
And,
like, literally killing them. People are dying.
Yeah.
And our inboxes are full of these people that are crying out for help, or thanking people like you and me and so many of the others on the internet or wherever that are speaking up in a variety of different ways. And the opposite side of that, the people who are just like, how dare you say these things? Yeah. How dare you? Well, it's such an easy choice for me to make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Boom, boom. That's what I say. Boom, boom. Yep. That is something I picked up from my sisters in AD Pi.
Oh.
I was not an AD Pi. I am a SIGAP. Did you know that I was in a fraternity in my undergrad?
No.
All of this.
I had no idea.
It was so the other night I was working at the restaurant, and some guys from, like, Emory University come in wearing their SIGAP letters, and I'm, like, nails done. I have, like, a little bit of a face on, and I'm like, oh my God, you guys are SIGAPs? Me too. And they were just like, oh. I'm like, they were not ready for it.
So good. That's true. Yeah. Just breaking barriers all over the place.
There's like a whole like internet of, like, queer Greek, like, Greek life organization people. Mm-hmm. Like, we're so out there, like, and it's the best. But that's a whole nother podcast for a whole nother time.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
So good. I feel like that might be a good place for us to wrap up. Do you think?
Sure. Yeah. It's your podcast.
I mean, do you have any other things you want to say to the people?
No, I don't really. In my mind, there are no people. It's just us. We're just talking, and
Yeah.
that there are actually other people that will listen or whatever is kind of like a very distant thought to me. So I'm good. I'm good. This was a great talk.
Do you have any compliments you want to just give to me?
Yeah, your hair is. God, I love it. I seriously do love it.
Thank you.
I'm also like looking at like the way that you put your sunglasses on your jacket, because I have a similar jacket, but I'm always throwing my sunglasses like in my bag or in my back pocket and breaking them. And I was like, oh, that actually.
Yeah.
This whole time I've been thinking, oh, I got to do that. That's a great idea.
Yeah. It's a friend showed me this, and I also got some dope pins over here of like all my favorite ladies.
God.
Frida and RBG, a Beyonce quote.
Perfect.
So she's here. And then David Bowie, which is like an honorary lady anyways.
I love it. So good.
Well, I would like to say a thing to you before we hang up. I am personally very thankful for your work because in the moments... shit, I'm going to cry. I'm not going to...
make me cry.
I'm sorry.
I've been on the verge of tears all day.
Well... I found your blog when I was in the middle of trying to figure out if God could still love me if I came out. If God could still love me if I came out of the closet, and to read your words about how you love your family so much and how you love the people around you no matter the cost, because that's what Jesus would do, gave me so much hope that I was going to be okay. And when your work does so much for so many people, and I know that you know that, but just from friend to a friend, I'm thankful that you exist in the world. I'm sorry that you had to walk through so much shit, but I'm thankful for how God has preserved you, and you know that you're using your story to like actually do some work that's meaningful and important. And so on the days when you feel doubt, you can go back and listen to this podcast and hear me crying on the air to all the internet. But I really value who you are and what you've done, and I am really excited to promote the shit out of your book.
Well, thank you. I don't know what else to say. That means everything to me.
Yeah, girl. I like you. I think you're a good woman.
Oh God, Kevin.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Jesus. I am trying to be a grown-up lady today. Doesn't cry. I've been crying all day long because the book thing, like, I don't know how to do the whole, like, when people say nice things to you. You can tell me to fuck off all day long. Like, I can take criticism, you can tell me you hate me, you can tell me I'm gonna burn in hell, like, all day long. I'm so cool with that. But when people are like, we love you, oh, fuck. I cannot hang.
Well, my mama told me one time when I was really bad at receiving compliments and positive feedback, she said, just tell people thank you. That's all they really want to hear. And so, even on the moments when I can't receive it or I don't feel good enough, I'd still say thank you.
Yeah. Well, and thank you, Kevin. Seriously. And it means... It's just so good to hear that, like, it matters. You know what I mean? Like, the shit that we're doing matters.
Yeah. Wow, cool. Who wants to go get some tissues / who needs to go get a drink? I do.
Me too.
Great.
Oh my gosh. I've done 5,000 podcasts and cried on exactly none of them.
Yeah!
So,
I think I might title this one,
oh my God,
the one where I made Jamie cry.
You totally should. And I actually have a friend who's like obsessed with wanting to see me cry because it's just not a thing. This is not a thing that I would normally allow to happen. So you got me right here. You got me in the feels.
I'm sorry that I, Holy Ghost moments, man. That's one of those things. And I don't often do that or like tell people that I really enjoy their work. I think it's because like I sometimes a lot of time I try to play it cool with like people I know from the internet, because like we always try to keep up this facade of like, oh, we're professionals, we're doing the same work, but just like, God, it's so fucking hard to like, because like, even though like, you know, I'm the same way as you, just like people can tell me that like I am like a sodomite all day long, and I'm just like, whatever. But even though like I think as a like, because we're in this business, so to speak, we have to develop a thick skin. And something that Viola Davis said in Braving the Wilderness, like Brene Brown interviewed her, and she said, I don't think that thick skin works anymore. She said, I think that transparency and vulnerability are the only way forward. And I'm just like, God damn it. I'm like, I don't want that, because like my entire life I have made it my business to survive, because that's what we've had to do. So maybe we should all just try and be a little bit more encouraging, because and
honestly, it means the world to me, and I'm super grateful for the words. So that it blessed me. You done blessed me right in my soul, or whatever. I don't know where blessing goes.
Yeah, well, that's the Pentecostal in me, honey.
Well, I appreciate it.
All right, now I'm going to pray over you in tongues. Just kidding. Just kidding. I have to go now. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll wrap it up. Can you tell humans on the internet where they can find you and engage with you, where they can get the book, etc.?
Yes, theveryworstmissionary.com is my space, but I'm probably more accessible on like Facebook, The Very Worst Missionary, or Twitter. My Twitter and Instagram are Jamie the VWM, which is stupid, but that's what it is. And my book is available from retailers everywhere. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It's like in stores. Like
you done did the damn thing. You have a fucking book out there, Jamie. You have a fucking book out there.
I know. Like, it is so weird to me that there's an actual physical book like on Barnes and Noble shelves.
Yeah.
It's out there, and people have been sending me pictures all day, and I'm just like, holy
You did a thing.
Shit. I did a thing, and I think I did it with God, which is really cool.
That was my conversation with my friend Jamie Wright, aka The Very Worst Missionary. You can pick up Jamie's new book, which is also titled The Very Worst Missionary, subtitle, a memoir, or whatever. Pick it up wherever amazing books are sold. And also, a big fat congratulations to you, Jamie, on getting a book to hit #1 on Amazon. That's pretty incredible. Like, #1 in books and new releases and Christian memoir. And then also in, like, I think Jewish memoir, too, because you're also, you know, kind of a little Jewish. That's amazing. And I'm really stoked for you. You can also connect with Jamie on her website, theveryworstmissionary.com, and then across social media at Jamie the VWM, which stands for The Very Worst Missionary. Also, check out the Failed Missionary podcast, which she does with Corey Pig and a host of other really cool people, and where they talk about the billion-dollar industry that is missions and really go into like the problems that we're having there. I'm going to be on Failed Missionary in a couple months to talk about it from a queer perspective and what it's doing to the bodies, lives, and spirits of LGBTQ individuals. Who saw that coming? You know, talking about queer stuff on other podcasts. Yeah. So again, thanks, Jamie. That was fun. If you thought this program or this conversation was good for you, I would highly encourage you to do something about it. If you think that this podcast is helping people, if it was helpful for you today, you need to go support this on Patreon. For as little as $1 or a couple bucks a month, you can actually help create more queer and progressive Christian content that speaks to our real life and lived experiences. I've been doing this for over 2 years now, and honestly, it's not possible without your support. So if you're the kind of person who listens to the podcast, I'll wager that you're probably someone who also like goes out for drinks and maybe buys yourself lunch, or maybe you're going, you know, to the store or something. So I imagine that you have like $5 to throw around, maybe $10, maybe $15, that maybe you can give a little bit of your money each month to help support this stuff, because it ain't free. This shit ain't free, honey. It's time, it's energy, it's scheduling, it's software, it's all sorts of different things. So I would highly encourage you, if this is good for you, if it's good for the world and you know, you've got some extra bucks, put your money where your mouth is, or put your money where your ears are listening, or whatever. Anyways, I would love your support. Go to patreon.com/thekevingarcia and learn what being a supporting partner looks like today, Barbara. I think you'll really love it. And to all my Patreon supporters who do make this show possible already, you guys are incredible. Thank you so much. And rewards are going out soon. So if you got a t-shirt for last quarter, you'll see it in your mailbox pretty soon. Last thing, leave a review for the show. Like, if you like it, if you think it's dope, even if you're not going to give on Patreon, at least don't be lazy and leave a review so we can get this in front of more people. I'm trying to be the gay liturgist over here, you know what I'm saying? Trying to be popular, trying to be cool, trying to be progressive, and trying to get that followership, baby. So go share this with your friends, share it with your mom, your daddy, or your daddy, if you know what I'm saying. And yeah, let's get this in front of more people, because I really want to expand this conversation to be much more. Coming up in the coming weeks on A Tiny Revolution, I am very excited to share with you that Rachel Held Evans will be joining us, Austin Channing Brown will be joining us, and a couple of cool other people. I'm so freaking excited. Like, I don't know. So thank you so much for joining me this week. Thank you to Jamie Wright for being on the podcast. And yeah, this has been another episode of A Tiny Revolution. My name is Kevin Garcia. Now go take your meds, go talk to your therapist, call your mama, your daddy, or your friends. Go eat dinner somewhere that's really delicious. Drink some whiskey if that's your thing. And if you're a recovering alcoholic, drink something that's non-alcoholic that you also enjoy. Cool? Tight? Have some yogurt. I know, like, you think it's gross, but, like, it's so good for you. Those probiotics, baby. We need that in our system. Anyways, I'm done talking. I love you. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.